Yes.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Portsmouth School Committee meeting of August 11th, 2020. We're trying something new tonight, as if you can't tell. We are resuming a hybrid of in-person and Zoom meetings. So I'd like to start with a call to order and a pledge of allegiance. If you join me, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. So I've been told that the primary speaker is able to remove their mask when talking. So I'll do that while I'm in my role as chair, and then I'll be putting it back on. Up to now, since the end of COVID, or the start of COVID, we have had all Zoom remote meetings. And tonight we're trying to see if we can do a combination of in-person and Zoom meetings. So we have some school committee members, Fred Ferber, Rita Kenahan, who are Zooming in, and we have other school committee members who are with us in person, and we have admin Zooming in and admin in person. So we're really just trying to see how it works. So if you could kind of bear with us here as we work through the technical aspects, that would be great. So let the roll call reflect that all school committee members are present. The first item on the agenda is the Rhode Island Association of School Committee school committee updates. And last week, the governor and the commissioner of education had a meeting with the school committee chairs across the state, where they basically answered questions, provided information. So quick summary of that, and Dr. Kenworthy is probably going to be elaborating on that more when he gets to his school reopening. So the good news was that the governor said that the state would be taking care of the COVID testing requirements for districts. And the goal is a 48-hour turnaround. They have 48 to 72 listed, but she hoped that it would be a 48-hour turnaround. They were also releasing the COVID-19 outbreak response playbook for schools, which is providing guidance on how to respond to various scenarios with students, teachers, and staff. And that is actually available online if people want to take a look at it. It's called Outbreak Response Playbook, pre-K through 12. So that's just something that people can check into. Based on the state's metrics as of last week, there were 3 towns, Providence, Central Falls, and I don't remember, Pawtucket, that would not be able to have some in-person opening. They'd have to be fully remote, but all other districts are able to have at least partial in-person opening. Let's see. She did mention that they were getting a lot of requests for additional time. There was reference to the Massachusetts having delayed opening or having teachers come in for a week, but not the kids. But I don't believe any decision's been made on that. So that may be in your update.
Yeah, just this afternoon.
Oh, okay. Well, stay tuned. More there. A lot of the meeting was about very specific questions for districts, which didn't apply to Portsmouth. She did say, however, this was the education commissioner, did say that they are working on substitute teachers. They're having a campaign to attract, and hopefully they'll create a cadre statewide pool of substitute teachers. The budget information would be the bad news in the sense that they were very much in a wait and see mode to see what the federal government does, because that will have the biggest impact on how the state handles its next year's budget. Once they get that information, they'll work on the budget. But the governor hoped anyway, that more money would be coming from the federal government for education. So that's all of the REASC update. All right. So my last item on the chairperson's remarks is titled Recognition of Opening Efforts. And as chair, I tried to use this time to provide additional information to school committee members and the community and not make speeches. But I really do feel it's important that we take a moment to recognize really the Herculean efforts that have been occurring in our district, Portsmouth, over the past couple of months. Over 119 individuals, Dr. Kenworthy reported, administrators, teachers, staff, school committee members, parents, really worked tirelessly to shape the required reopening plans and get the resources that we need as a district to operate under a variety of scenarios. They've thought ahead, they've planned, they've measured classrooms, they've moved furniture, they've worked on technology upgrades, you name it. And having listened last week to a lot of commentary from chairs of other districts around the state, I do honestly feel that Portsmouth is in a much, much better position than many, many districts around the state. Now, obviously, health and safety are paramount, and there are still a lot of unknowns, and it's not easy for anyone, teachers, families, staff, administrators, to live with uncertainty. So I think the whole school committee thanks you for your patience and your flexibility. The fact that many families were able to step up and help provide transportation for their children has helped us overcome some huge obstacles. But I'd particularly like to recognize Dr. Kenworthy for the excellent job he's done with leading the effort and communicating information regularly to stakeholders. However, he would be the first person to say it's a team effort. So I'd like the school committee to join me in recognizing everyone who has helped put the district in a position to be prepared for a variety of scenarios. So thank you. I know you worked hard this week. 8 people applauding, but you all deserve it, right? So, okay, so those are my remarks. Moving on to subcommittee update, the Racial Equity Subcommittee, Mr. Piero.
Of the mask with glasses on. We had our first meeting on July 22nd, and this came out of our conversations with parents that had been happening since our meeting in June when we issued our statement. First and foremost, we are always looking for more community stakeholders, and we are trying to create a diverse pool of community members from every single background, and making sure that not only is the work that the committee does equitable, but that the group represents that equity. In our next meeting, in the last couple of weeks, we'll be creating short, medium, and long-term goals, with the focus of really developing a holistic approach to not only how do we confront these issues, but how we best prepare the students that come out of Portsmouth to be in a ever-changing global society. So we're making sure that we're doing that, and we will continue and solicit more community and family feedback as we do go along this process.
Thank you. Ms. Viveros, do you have, I know you and Mr. Piero are working in tandem on this. Do you have anything?
Yeah, so we've been collaborating, and just last week we met and started to discuss some short-term goals and long-term goals that we're going to bring to our team. So I feel like we're in a good place to move forward with this.
Great. Okay, is there, now this is going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
There is no public comment from the public here, but what about our public on Zoom? Do we have any public comment? I see.
No hand raising, no checks.
Well, we have Jen Collins saying, I love your Portsmouth mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
We appreciate the shout out. Okay, no public comment for tonight. Superintendent's update, Dr. Kenworthy.
Thank you, Dr. Copeland. As we're resuming our regular school committee meetings, what I typically do is just provide an update of the staff, any changes that we've had since the last official meeting. So in this case, this would have been the meeting at the end of June. We do have a number of open positions that we are working throughout the summer to try to fill, and I'm happy to report that individuals and the positions that I am going to name off today are the people who are completely hired at this point, all paperwork. We're not waiting on anything. We do have another group of people who we're just waiting on a few things, regarding some final answers on certifications and things like that. So I'll have another list to present to you later in August. But since our last official meeting in June, as you know, we did have an emergency quick meeting last week to appoint our new Director of Human Resources so that you had to approve the contract so that could expedite her start date. So again, that is Mrs. Kimberly Aguirre and Aguirre. I'm trying to get down all the different ways that name, I hear that name pronounced. And she, as you know, has been officially appointed. You've approved the contract, and she's actually starting on Monday. I'm happy to report. So then, with that, these are the individuals who will be joining our PSD team in various positions. So, at Portsmouth Middle School, new school psychologist Jasmine Clark. The student support specialist who will serve both Melville and Hathaway. This is replacing Danielle Laurie, who moved up to Melville principal, is Mrs. Kelly Corville. Music teacher at Portsmouth Middle School, Aaron Kutu. Social studies teacher at Portsmouth High School, Gabrielle Greco. Science teacher at Portsmouth High School, Jenna Larson. PE health APE teacher who will work over both Hathaway and Portsmouth Middle School, Jonathan Lewis. School psychologist at Portsmouth High School. This is a return name. You may remember Amanda Medor. She's going to be returning to the district in that capacity. Grade 7 science teacher at Portsmouth Middle School, Cynthia Malone. Special education teacher at Portsmouth Middle School, Elizabeth Perry. Literacy specialist at Portsmouth High School, Catherine Wagner. And I believe it's a 7th grade ELA teacher at Portsmouth Middle School, Eden Yunkin, again, as a return to us. So, again, those are the individuals that we have fully brought on at this point, and we are continuing to fill other positions throughout the summer as we're getting ready for the start of the school year. Some capacity, which will lead into our next agenda item.
Have we filled all the critical, I know there were a number of science positions at the high school, and I see one here.
See one there, so we do have the 2 other individuals identified. We are trying to fill between all of those particular science positions. You can see this one, these are just not easy certifications. So biology, chemistry combination, which Jenna had, who I read off tonight. The other 2, it's a mix of physics and chemistry. So there are just people who we're finalizing with RIDE. In some cases, we've had to ask for emergency certification so they can work on the other areas. So those are tough positions to fill. But we do have the individuals identified. Okay. So next up under my update is a school reopening update. And you can pull up that presentation whenever you're ready, Stephen. So it's going to be quite a few people. I'm going to take the first few slides, but we have members of our central office, administrative team, and also our school principals are just going to do a quick update by level. And it's ever-changing information here, as Dr. Copeland indicated, just as late as this afternoon, we received some news that at tomorrow's weekly press conference, Governor Raimondo is going to be announcing that the start of school, which had been scheduled for August 31st, that being the first day with students, that is going to be pushed back 2 weeks to September 14th. And she's going to build in, you may have seen Massachusetts a few weeks ago had followed a similar pattern. So we're going to build in some, remember there were professional development days spread out throughout the calendar that we had revised to reflect the statewide calendar. Some of those days are going to be moved up now to that week prior to September 14th.
Are they reducing, are they going from 180 to 170?
It's still going to be, with all of those professional development days, there will still be 180 school days, if you will, counting all of the professional.
So basically teachers will start early and then students will start on.
First day for students, September 14th. Teachers are going to start sometime into that week prior. And we'll get the details on that tomorrow in Governor Raimondo's press conference. what I understand, so superintendent, we just received the information this afternoon, and I think she was not going to announce it officially till tomorrow. Typically, in that case, we would have heard at some point tomorrow right before the press conference, but I believe some information had been leaked to the press, and so they have decided to release it publicly as of today. You can go to that first slide with the timeline, Steve.
Okay.
Right. So again, some of these dates will change, as we know, with the first day of the school year, and we have other adjustments which we'll need to make. I just also wanted to make a plug while I was on the subject. So we have Governor Raimoto's press conference tomorrow at 1. Those have become weekly press conference, so there's a lot of information packed in, and at this point, a lot of time is being devoted towards school reopening conversations. So those are definitely informative to watch if you're able to. And then Thursday, you may have seen we had sent out the information as well. Governor Raimoto had also started doing a Facebook Live conversation on Thursdays. So you have to access that through her Facebook page. If you just on Facebook search for Governor Gina Raimondo, go to her first Facebook page. But this Thursday at 3 o'clock, her guest is going to be Dr. Anthony Fauci, and talking all about topics related to school reopening. Okay, so what we wanted to do today, you can go back for a minute.
Oh, I'm
Steve.
sorry.
We've provided a lot of information throughout the summer, and we had the development of our full plan, release of our full plan on Thursday, July 30th. We did the community forum and provide at that point what was the most up-to-date information that we've had. We've had some changes since then, so we just wanted to kind of tonight focus on kind of moving forward throughout August, which again, as is laid out there, a lot of the focus right now is on supporting our school-based teams and our school administrators, who we will hear from a little later in this presentation, on just trying to make sure that we have everything at the building level that we need to, again, when we get the word on how we're going to be reopening. So some of these deadlines are going to have to be adjusted. You can see we had set, working off of that August 31st start date, we had set some deadlines there. We also have the transportation survey. We'll maybe be able to extend that a little bit, but we are trying to get some final information on that so we can start building bus lists. We have the deadline for families to elect if they, no matter which scenario we open under, if they know that they want to be in full distance learning, and you're going to hear more about that in the teaching and learning portion tonight. Again, we do need to set a deadline on that. We will probably be adjusting it at this point. That August 17th date for the final determination on reopening has now also been changed to August 31st. So again, with the September 14th, first official day of the school year, what we heard this afternoon is that we will not have a final decision now. That date has been pushed to August 31st as far as which scenario districts should plan to reopen under. So the next slide, Steve, is right about the time that we were heading into our community forum. Governor Raimondo had released the metrics on which she and other state leaders are going to use to determine which scenario. Again, this date will now be by August 31st. Dr. Copeland spoke a little bit about this on the testing end and efforts there to make sure that we have testing in place for symptomatic students or staff members. Statewide readiness, municipal readiness are again all based on those numbers. Right now at the district level, what we're really honing in on are numbers 4 and 5. So those are the ones that right now are kind of more in our control, if you will, as we're getting ready for those final decisions on the opening of the school year. Number 5 really deals a lot with our reopening planning efforts. Right now, again, that is supporting our school-based teams. And number 4 is the one that at this point I'm really trying to keep my eye on, because we have great plans of how we want to, within the guidelines, provide the safest environment to bring back students and staff under whichever scenario we're told we can do so. But a lot of that is obviously dependent on making sure that we have the proper supplies in place to do that. So we feel confident that we've placed all the orders at this point that we need to in order to get us to that point. But obviously, I'm gonna have my eye on making sure that those supplies come in when they're supposed to at this point going forward. So, and all of that will combine into that final decision on just how we will open the school year. Now, which the date that's been set for September 14th. So next up, Mr. Diora, who I believe is on there remotely. We wanted to include, we've been talking a lot, and I know there have been some questions on the overall budget and kind of what we're using for the different lines that we're drawing on to buy these supplies and make sure we have everything we need to reopen. So Mr. Diora has a slide here to provide some more detail on that.
Can you just advance that slide one more? Perfect, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, shut my fan off.
Speaking
So we have a number of buckets of funding that we can target for COVID related expenses. You've probably heard a few of these mentioned in the media. So the first bucket, which is called the ESSER funds, or Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, that's actually about a $240,000 grant, but it comes with private school funding attached to it. So for Portsmouth Public Schools, it's actually $201,000. That is actually, if you remember when they passed the budget, they actually cut state aid for FY20 at the last minute. They actually replaced it with these funds. So these funds are a replacement of state aid. They are available for use. It's very flexible. You pretty much can use it for anything. Obviously, we're going to be using it for COVID-related expenses. And these funds are available through 9/30/22. So basically, a year from now or 2 years from now. Then the second bucket is the COVID Relief Fund, or CRF. That was $291,000. Those have a lot more restrictions. So those are only available for COVID related expenses, and they cannot be expenses that were budgeted for in your regular budget. They must be incremental. And if you use it for something that continues beyond 12/30/20, because these funds are only available to the end of this calendar year, you have to demonstrate to RIDE that you're able to continue funding that with local funds or some other mechanism, but it can't be you're hoping for another bailout from the federal government. You must be able to show that. Then the next bucket is my estimate for the current year surplus. As you, I'm sure, remember, you did vote to move all surplus funds from FY20 into a special revenue fund, one time only, to be used for COVID-related expenses. And again, the reason this surplus is about $725,000 is because when we shut down the schools, we stopped obviously incurring many expenses that were in the budget. And we can clearly use that for any COVID-related expense. And then the last bucket, if you remember back when the town passed the final version of the school budget back in June, there was a supported motion to eliminate the capital budget for our furniture and fixtures, and the request was that we use our own capital funds for that. So that budget was $233,000, and that would be used for COVID-related expenses. Mainly, so far we've used that for tables and things like that. So in total, $1,451,000 specifically targeted for COVID. Of course, we have our rainy day fund, and we have some additional funds in our capital fund should we fall short of what we need utilizing these funds. Any questions on that?
Okay, I have a question. How can we use that first item for COVID expenses if that was state aid? Because that would have been in our operating budget, and state aid would have been built into kind of covering everything, salaries, et cetera, et cetera. That we need to, don't we need that for our operating budget?
So I think the intention was that it obviously it came down at the last moment. So originally this was supposed to be for COVID. Clearly at the last minute, they swapped it in for state aid. I think, I'm speculating here, but I'm thinking for that was because a lot of districts probably were projecting to have surpluses because they stopped transporting. No buses were running. There were no sports. So if we needed to use this for some reason to ensure we did not have a deficit in the prior year, then we would use it for that. But as you can see from that third item below, I'm projecting that we will have a surplus even with that state aid cut. So I'm recommending we use that money for COVID-related expenses.
Okay, thank you. So of this 1 point, whatever we have here, how much have we spent already with, personnel, personal protective equipment, all the furniture and fixtures? Do you have kind of a ballpark?
I think that as of right now, we've probably spent about, when I say spent, we probably issued purchase orders for about $500,000 worth of furniture, fixture, and PPE. There's also some software for distance learning, things like that. The remainder of those funds will most likely be targeted to additional custodians that we're posting for to help make sure the buildings are clean and disinfected. We are, as I think you may have heard, we're posting for, I believe it's 12 additional, I'll call them like building-based full-year teacher substitutes. Also, there are some additional, I think there's 4 general school aides that we're looking to hire. And I think there's also some support, and I don't know exactly what form that's taking for the school nurses as well. So there'll be a lot more personnel costs, but those positions have not been filled yet. So I'd say about $500,000 on the purchase order side.
So it's kind of hard to gaze into a crystal ball, but town councilor asked me, do we expect that we're going to have like a shortage, or do you think we're in pretty good status right now?
Well, I'm obviously keeping my own little sort of projection, and these are very high-level numbers, but I do project us to probably have about $250,000 shortage. But that includes some, I just put a bucket of money in there for unanticipated expenses that I haven't even thought about. So that's where those additional, the emergency, the rainy day fund, perhaps some additional capital funds. We may have some options prior to needing to go back to the town, but it's really probably too early to say. But I don't see it being, at least right now, a really, really large number. I think we'll probably be in the ballpark.
Kate Holtman?
I just have a question. What if schools don't open? What happens to those funds that we're spending on PPE?
Could you hear that question, Chris?
No, we can't.
I'm sorry, I could not hear that.
The question was, what if schools don't open? What happens to the funds that we're spending on PPE?
So those funds are going to be expended. So those orders have already been placed. Clearly, we did not buy enough PPE to get us through the entire year. We've purchased, I think, enough for about, probably, if I remember, about 6 months on average. We will have that PPE. So once we have it, we have it. I don't know if there would be a way to repurpose that, if we have thousands of masks. But we didn't buy a full year's worth, just knowing that we don't know what we don't know. But we did buy enough to make sure that we had plenty on hand, and when we opened, we wouldn't be in a situation where we needed to reorder, immediately and worry about that.
The extra personnel costs, though, that's one of the reasons why we're trying to wait until we know for sure which scenario we're going to reopen under, because if we didn't open in any sort of full scenario, then that will lessen the number of additional personnel we think we would need.
Yes.
I read the background information. Maybe it's in this slide presentation. I don't remember where, but there's a shortage of plexiglass, and I think I read that there's an uncertain delivery date with regard to plexiglass. So if that's the case, is that a deal stopper in terms of opening school?
I think, and Dr. Kenworthy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we found a local supplier of plexiglass here in the East Bay, and we've placed the orders for everything that we need right now, and they're telling us they can fulfill our orders in time.
And one other question. Substitutes. Sorry, you said we need roughly 12 substitutes, but I imagine every school district in the state is going to be looking for substitutes. In a normal year, don't we have difficulty getting substitutes?
I don't know.
we have placed that ad already, and I think we have quite a few people. We're gonna set up an interview process to make sure we're bringing in, the right people for those positions. But so far, we've had a good response rate. So
32 applicants.
Good,
Fred, did you hear that? 32
Yes.
applicants. Okay.
yes.
Other questions? All right, I think we're good.
all right. So next section is health and safety. That'll be Dr. Colwell. I believe she does have an update on the plexiglass as well.
I do. Steve, could you go to the next slide? Thanks. So I have a couple of areas to update everybody on when it comes to health and safety. So the first one is the Aspen self-attestation form that has been built by Beth Farley in the IT department. And we have two strands. One is for the staff, which we actually just launched today. We started, all went well. And it's a very simple login, answer the question and submit, and you're done. And then the similar one for the families when school does resume. And of course, as Dr. Kenworthy noted, there are some inaccurate dates just given the very late information that we just received. So, we're in a good spot to be able to do this electronically and eliminate paper. The PPE order that we just talked about in the previous slide, I have to give a shout out to Lynn Alvarez and Rachel Marciano because they spent hours going through and really crunching down what it is that we needed. And then Rachel really took it further and contacted multiple vendors to place orders. One of the things that's noteworthy is that while much of our PPE some of it has arrived and some of it is expected in the next couple of weeks. And one of the things that we noted is when we she contacted certain vendors, they said, oh yes, we can accommodate that, but then they're the middleman. So they're getting it from a larger place who doesn't have it. So now we're back in square one. So lots and lots of outreach to get this PPE. In one instance, there was one vendor who would only allow you to order a certain amount every day. So exactly. So a lot of that. So they really have done a tremendous job to secure PPE for the district. The one area we're struggling with, which is not a surprise, is N95s. N95s, however, are supposed to be part of the state allocation of PPEs. There's a list of PPE that the state will be giving, one of which includes N95s. To what Chris indicated, we did not purchase PPE to get us through the entire school year. There's always that balance that we're trying to strike, because if we don't open or there's some other change that doesn't involve everybody being on site, we don't want to sit on that PPE, but we want to be certainly ready to go. So in some areas we have about 15 weeks worth, and then in other areas, to Chris, I think Chris had mentioned, we have more than that as well. So we are moving, in the right direction with our PPE, which segues into our plexiglass. So there was a vendor that both Chris and Rachel have received some outreach from, who was able to get us plexiglass shields ordered. And we ordered those mostly for those folks who work one-on-one with students, whether you're a speech pathologist, whether you're a school counselor or an RBT, or we've accounted for a school counselor, we've accounted for a vast number of groups. And all of that information went out to the buildings, and those orders have gone in as well. So we do have those, and those are expected to arrive August 17th. Through walks with Mr. Dean, our isolation spaces have been designated across each building, and he has purchased HEPA air purifiers for each isolation space.
And isolation spaces are for if a student is
Sure, so if
suspected
there's a
of having
suspected
COVID?
case, correct. If there's a suspected case, the protocol is that student is isolated. Steve, could we go to the next slide, please? And then more
I have a
on.
question.
Right?
Was there any thought given to face shields? I see a lot of broadcasts with regard to other school districts around the country, and I noticed some of the teachers seem to be wearing the face shields, some without masks, but a face shield, some with masks and a face shield.
Sure,
So-
so
So I'm
Mr.
curious.
Roberts, I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Was there any consideration given to purchasing face shields?
Oh, yes.
Are we doing that?
Yes, so we did, I'm sorry, there's a bit of a delay, so if I'm interrupting you, I'm certainly not trying to. So
No,
there
it's fine.
is, so there were orders of face shields for various staff. And the practice generally is not just a face shield, but a mask and a face shield to your point. So that has been ordered as well. So maybe just to kind of ease, in case anybody's wondering, we are still seeking N95s. We have adult face masks, children's face masks, face shields, latex-free gloves, pulse oximeters, thermometers, gowns, separation screens for the nurses, and then face masks for our younger students, our younger teachers and speech pathologists and support staff along with that, that have the clear panel. We typically call them smile masks because you can see the actual face of the actual mouth of the individual who's wearing it, and it's generally fogless. So as I get into facilities, Mr. Dean's on tonight. I know I saw him pop in, so I'm sure that if there are other questions with his expertise, he'll be able to help us along as well if there are other follow-up questions. But in his neck of the woods, they've been working on disinfecting. He's ordered, as you can see, 4 electrostatic backpack sprayers. You probably have seen them in the last couple of months, you know, if you watch the news or read along in any of the media. But those are backpack sprayers for both interior and exterior areas such as the playground. Those particular devices or those particular sprayers have the capacity to last for quite some time. It's a 4-week lifespan because of the cleaner that's used. It's a Max Clean and it's a green product, but it is designed to have a 4-week lifespan. Mr. Dean's plan is not to not spray every 4 weeks. His plan is to do every 2, and then obviously any other areas as needed, should there be a need for that. He's been working to schedule adjustments for custodial staff. I think you heard Mr. Giro speak about the fact that we're looking at adding additional custodial staff. So the response to that is Mr. Dean's working with the custodians to look at some more staggered starts, to have more capacity in the building into the early evening. And we talked about the addition of 4 custodians. Melville and Hathaway, and Chris touched on this as well with respect to furniture. Classroom tables have been ordered, and you saw a little glimpse of that when we did one of our parent forums where Mrs. Rivero showed an example of what a classroom might look like. And then Mr. Dean is currently investigating the availability of MERV 13 filters. I learned a little bit about MERV 13 filters, and while I'm not an expert in it, this would be, a filter for our, HVAC systems that are they filter a little bit heavier or more industrialized for filtering, the airflow in the building. Did I do okay with that, Jim? Can you unmute him?
He's muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's got a mute right now.
He gave you a thumbs up.
You did fine.
So that's where we are with health and safety at this point. I tried to give you some of the highlights and some of the, new pieces of information since the last time we've met.
Other questions? So what about things like picnic tables or outdoor tents to facilitate, outdoor gatherings of students? I mean, that may be in teaching and learning, but is that part of the facilities plan to get more outdoor equipment like that?
Yeah, we're having individual discussions with each of the schools depending on what they need, but tents have certainly been a part of our discussions, and picnic tables have been as well, depending on what we're looking to use them for, because you still can't maintain the appropriate spacing if you have a picnic table. So we're trying to think out of the box and be a little bit more creative as to our outdoor scenarios. But the schools have really been working at looking at their outdoor layout and sectioning off their grounds so that they can have as many classes outside as they can.
I saw, this may not be relevant at all, but I saw a news article where they were talking about having at the elementary level lots of hula hoops, so that every kid would have a hula hoop and be able to sit down at their outdoor
Yeah.
space and be whatever the hula hoop distance is from other kids. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, we've been having some creative conversations. I had a conversation with Lisa Little, and we were talking about just having all of the students bring in a beach towel. And if they took their beach towel, they could just place it almost anywhere, and they can have their mask breaks. They could have a picnic lunch if they wanted to. But just something that we can actually bring in and out would make a little bit more sense in that we can space out appropriately. I think that sometimes when you're looking at picnic tables and even the tent structures, we already have some outdoor learning spaces, but we really don't want to be confining the students. We want the flexibility of having them be able to be in different areas. So, but everyone's being so creative with that.
I have a quick question.
Mr. Pereira.
And stop me if this has to do with teaching and learning. The classroom tables that are being ordered for the elementary schools, I know a big thing for especially my little one is the kind of table setting. I know that's not going to be possible, so I just wanted to know the type of tables that are being ordered.
Yep, so the tables that were ordered are exactly the same tables that we currently have in the classrooms.
Okay.
So they're about 6 feet, some of them are 5 feet, but we've ordered them we've also ordered the plexiglass. I wanted to follow up with Dr. Cole. We also ordered plexiglass for all of those tables. So the tables look like they're going to be here and shipped in time. There's going to be a lot of table building in the next few weeks because we purchased 6 additional tables for every elementary classroom. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And then I think I'm up next, right? Yep, so, and you can forward to the next
Sure,
slide.
yep.
So in the next 3 slides, I'm going to provide you with an overview of the work that we've been doing in preparing to launch our teaching and learning and really looking at all 3 of our opening scenarios and focusing in on that. So this first slide is an update of the distance learning survey results, the survey that Dr. Kenworthy sent out after our forum. And these results are as of Friday afternoon. So every day they're updating and changing. We currently, our survey is closing August 14th, and we had selected that date because we were looking at having the 17th be the date that the governor was going to give us some indication of what scenario we'd be opening under. We are having discussions of but just to provide you with an overview, so as of Friday afternoon, we had 231 families that have opted to have their students participate in either distance learning or homeschooling. So right now, we still have those 2 together. We'll be working in the next few weeks to develop 2 separate lists. At the elementary level, we have 87 elementary students who have opted for either distance learning or homeschooling, and that's about 38% of the survey, but 12% of our elementary students. At the middle school, 69 middle school students opting for either distance learning or homeschooling. That's 30% of the 231 and about 11% of our middle school students. And at the high school, 75 students, and that's about 32% of our total of the families that have opted for distance learning or homeschooling. Again, those numbers have increased a bit over the weekend, and I'm thinking that they will continue. But I've been having some really great conversations with families, and I just encourage you to reach out to me. I think it's easier for us to have a conversation and talk through the options. Every student is so unique and their situation is unique. So really having that conversation and dialogue so that we can make an informed decision together. Okay, next slide. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about what distance learning staffing is looking like. And I will say that this is still developing. We are having conversations with our administrators. We're having conversations with our union leadership and with our teachers. And I feel like it's going to be evolving throughout the next few weeks. So any recommendations and suggestions, please just reach out to us as well, because it is a work in progress. But currently, when we're looking at our elementary classrooms, we're looking at having one teacher designated as the distance learning teacher for every grade, and that's kindergarten through grade 6 is what we're looking at as our elementary students. That distance learning teacher will have a roster of students that could very well have students from both Melville and Hathaway. They will follow their structured schedule, so a little different than how we provided distance learning instruction for our students in the spring. We're going to have the teachers really follow and adhere to their regular schedule. So having those mini lessons on each of the content areas. If there's, if the teacher that's a distance learning teacher happens to, let's say, be a Melville teacher, that teacher already has a UA scheduled into her daily schedule. They will have, the students would have that UA. That UA teacher would be joining in supporting the students during that time. So again, it's going to vary by grade because it looks like we've got, higher numbers in the lower grades of elementary and then a little less in 3rd and 4th right now. So we're still going to be working through all of those pieces. At the secondary level, it's a little different. So as we know, we're content specific, and because of that, and the lack of flexibility when it comes to being able to support our students, some of the conversations that I've had with families are that there was great success with distance learning in the spring, but we have such different scenarios now this fall because we have to account for the families that are going to be the students that are going to be coming to us that opt to be in person or hybrid depending on that model, the group of students that are going to be full distance learning. Then if we're in a hybrid model, teachers are going to be working with the students that are in front of them, the students that are hybrid, and then in addition to that, also the pocket of students that may have to self-quarantine or are out sick, because as we know, we really have some tight restrictions now with coming into school. So because of that, we have partnered with Edgenuity for the secondary students. So we're still working out some of the kinks, but I've been having really good conversations with our admin at the high school, and we're looking at having one administrator oversee distance learning, and that's going to be the connection with our families, because again, there are every case is so individualized, and we're going to have to sit and collaborate with that student, look at their current course selection, ensure that they've got a seat in their class, in addition to then building their courseware for that marking period through Edgenuity. We're looking at assigning students with what we're calling academic coaches. And those academic coaches are going to be teachers that may have underlying medical conditions that aren't going to be able to return to us in person with students. And those teachers are going to be working comprehensively with those students. Again, in collaboration with the families, in collaboration with the administrator that's going to be working with them, but building their courses. We're also going to build a connection between the teacher that the student will be placed on their roster. We want to ensure that the pacing and the rigor of those classes really just mirror the same rigor and pacing of standards within the class, so that transition from being distance learning, and then if a family opts to move into the class at the next marking period, that we really are able to ensure that we've that student is prepared. So that's a lot of the work that is being done and is continuing to be done. And there are still a lot of questions on it. And so as we have more information, we'll be continuing to share that with you. Next slide.
Liz,
Yes.
one of my grandkids is a senior in high school in Ontario province in Canada. And what they're planning to do for the high school is to teach one course a month, with half the students going to in-person school for half the day, and the other half then doing distance learning for the second half, and then reversing it for the rest of the class, and alternating between morning and afternoon. That's something I haven't seen or heard anybody else suggesting, but I just helped out. as, you know, I don't know if it works for us or what, but it's something that another school system is doing.
Yeah, there are so many options out there. I think that every time Dr. Kenworthy and I look at a different plan, we're like, oh, there's this scenario, and we've really brought everyone together on this, and we felt like this scenario was the one that supported our students the most, and we're hopeful that they'll be successful with that. This next slide is just a quick overview of technology, because we are really centered on ensuring that we've got all of our technology in place. So all of our additional Chromebooks have been purchased, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're already all in. So
Everything's in.
getting updated, which is excellent.
Yep.
In the last few weeks, we did make the decision to purchase iPads for all of our middle and high school teachers, so that they had that option for various reasons. But the need for 2 devices when you're looking at manipulating students who may be needing to be on a live stream or small group instruction throughout the classroom. In addition to that, just the option of, if we were to be full distance learning and having that additional device to work as a document camera, there were a lot of reasons. So we have purchased those, and I believe we're close to having all that we need to be able to start passing them out to teachers. It'll be great that we'll have some flexibility with some additional professional development days in September to work on that piece of it. We've had ongoing professional development throughout the really the entire summer, and Tim Marum and Sarah Del Santo have really been instrumental in that work, and they've been even behind the scenes working one-on-one with teachers that have reached out to them, really providing very specialized training to support them to build their Google classrooms and be able to bring in all of the resources that they need. So I truly appreciate their efforts with that. Steve and I have been looking at tightening up our contract with Edgenuity. The next step is for us to be able to reserve all of those days for the professional development, which has been a little problematic with us because we need to ensure that we've got our signed PO and we're ready to go. So we're in the process of doing that. But there will be a Zoom PD specific for middle school, a Zoom PD specific for the high school, and then we're going to have this this platform for our teachers that will provide self-paced professional development and any coaching and support that they may need, and they'll have access to all of those PDs as well. So I encourage teachers, as soon as that opens up, to start looking at that. And we're also looking at providing additional professional development for our teachers as far as all of the new devices that they're going to be working with. So that's all ongoing.
Questions? Okay, great.
And that's here from each of our schools,
Yep,
right?
yep. So next up, we have a building update. Actually, we have an elementary specific update and then a middle and high school. So Danielle Laurie and Lisa Little will be providing the elementary update. Hi, ladies.
Hello, how are you? And I just wanted to say, unfortunately, Mrs. Little could not make it tonight, but she sends her regrets. But if you see in this slide, it's very reflective of the strong partnership we have had this summer, and we will continue to have as the school year moves forward, because we have a shared slide, because so much of what we've done has been collaborative. So if you notice here, the apple is the Hathaway side and the whale is the Melville side, but in the middle are the things that both schools have done together. So if we look to, oops, sorry, is someone, I'm sorry, I thought I heard someone asking a question. I apologize. So the first thing is we have our building-based teams, and both of our teams have met 3 times this summer, going on 4 times this week. And from those teams, we've developed our own subcommittees, and we're covering health and safety, rituals and routines, MTSS, outdoor learning, and schedules. In addition, our building leadership teams are, Melville is meeting this week, and I believe Hathaway met last week, but we'll be meeting throughout August, and we're working on our school improvement plans and also looking at those MTSS lessons to see what we can revise and what lessons of expectations that we need to now build in. Example, teaching children how to be socially distant, how to practice social distancing, how to wear masks, and how to reinforce that in a positive way that contributes to our PBIS system. As far as preparations go, you were talking about our table order a little bit a few slides ago. We have ordered, we've ensured that every student will have a whiteboard table that will be split in half. The plexiglass will divide the students, and then individual students will have their own storage bins. They have bins for their folders, and they also have bins for their own pencils, crayons, markers, and things like that. In addition, we've ordered rolling teacher carts so teachers can put their Chromebooks on those carts. And if at any moment they need to live stream or they want to record, they have the ability to do so very easily. We're working on our COVID-19 signage. We're creating some personal fun ones that are reflective of our mascots and also using the recommended signage. Mrs. Little and I will be meeting this Thursday. We've already started to plan our KNU student virtual orientations, but that planning will conclude on Thursday and we'll start to invite our communities. In addition, at Melville, some of our classrooms do not have built-in sinks, and with the help of Mr. Dean, we ordered some portable sinks so all classes have water and soap and accessible to them in addition to the hand sanitizer. Our yearbooks have finally arrived. There was a big delay with that this year, and with the help of both of our parent-teacher groups, those yearbooks have been distributed and are actually still being distributed. And as far as hiring, tomorrow, Mrs. Little and our committees will be working on hiring additional general school aides. Both schools have pretty much all staff returning, but we do still have a few openings, and we have a great pool of candidates. So we're excited about tomorrow to see who will be joining our teams. And we're working with the district to hire building substitutes. So now if we look at the Hathaway side, they have an outdoor classroom that they're working on with Mr. Dean to really make sure it meets their design specifications. And that's something they're working collaboratively to make sure that that can get into place, especially during this COVID-19 time where we are prioritizing that outdoor learning. So as far as Melville goes, our outdoor learning adventure zone, we've continued our partnership with Thrive Outside. We've met over the summer. We've reached out for community volunteers. We've had many families volunteer. And Mr. Dean, for us at Melville, is looking into a sustainable watering system. However, Melville has some really great outdoor space. You can't always see that from West Main Road, but if you go to the back, we have 3 different recess areas. So every grade level will have a chance to get outside and be either on the basketball court, the playground, or out on our blacktop. But in addition, we're giving every class an outdoor learning opportunity, an instructional opportunity, which can either take place on the outdoor learning zone or in our outdoor classroom, which is already there for us. And we've prioritized that PE will always have access to the field, so that way students can get out multiple times of the day. We've set up a scheduling system so all staff know what outdoor locations are available at any time. So as far as our family and staff communication, both Lisa and I did a staff check-in meeting on July 13th. And that was right when teachers were notified that they needed to clear out some of their classrooms to help make space to provide social distancing with their students. We checked in with our staff. We had a voluntary Zoom meeting, and teachers were allowed to come and ask questions and just get, their concerns addressed. In addition, about every 2 weeks, we've been sending out a message both to our families and our staff, and we've put in an example of that on both sides. So you'll see the Hathaway example and the Melville example. Just last week, we sent out our supply list, and those lists are included in there as well. And for Hathaway Professional Development, they had a teacher attend distance learning, strengthening your online instruction. They had a first grade teacher attend. In addition, the Hathaway team has been working on Google Classroom training. And if you see for the Melville's professional development, we're continuing to work with Thrive Outside and have also been engaging in Google Classroom training. In addition, we do have to hire an evening custodian, and we will be interviewing for that position on Friday, August 14th. So that is everything from the elementary schools.
Any other questions?
It's funny because there's so much negative that comes out of the COVID thing, but I also see how this might, kind of transform some elementary education in terms of outdoor learning and active learning and the classrooms. I mean, as a parent, I would love them. So I just think that's a really positive, creative approach. So kudos to the elementary folks here. More of an editorial comment than a question.
All right, great. Next up, we have our middle school, and we have Jamal that's going to present. Mr. Aruda.
So, there you go. Gotta find it in the dark.
I think,
There it goes.
Thank you, Steve. And good evening, everyone. With the Portsmouth Middle School, I'll start with the preparations that have taken place. Within the classroom desks, we have ordered a full set of desks for the entire sixth grade. Storage areas have been identified and materials have been moved, and I do have to commend Mr. Dean and the custodial staff of Portsmouth Middle School that have been working tirelessly in order that this takes place. And they have done a tremendous job, especially with the storage area. We brought all the high, tall cabinetry out of the classrooms into some working areas that can be accessible to all teachers while they're in the building. We met virtually with grades 7 and 8 in regards to room assignments. We had to do a lot of different assignments of rooms due to the fact that our learning centers would be about 8 classrooms per grade that have been turned into 4 classrooms due to the fact that half of a learning center is basically 1 classroom. And we'll be able to, within that classroom, put 24 desks or hexagon tables and 1 student per table, and having still the 6 feet distancing throughout the building. I met with grades 7 and 8 because it was a different way of looking at things in grades 7 and 8, and due to the fact that we needed more homerooms. There's 8 of them in grade 7 and 10 of them in grade 8. So we needed to look at sharing classrooms. And so we did have that meeting with those 2 grades in order that we would make them aware. And we gave them a choice as to what they would like, what would think would be best for them. And they came through anonymously with sharing the classroom. So that was a great outcome for us. Rolling teaching carts, we have ordered a little bit more than what has been placed here on the slide. Rolling teaching carts, I believe I ordered about 19 of them. We also ordered, and I mentioned a little bit later on, but we ordered 44 fans. 34 of those will be going into classrooms. 10 of those will be going into interior offices, the closed-in spaces. We did order 20 picnic tables in order that every single one of the grades would have 5 of those. We do presently have 4 picnic tables, so it will be 6 per grade when we open up. We also placed an order for 14 walkie-talkies in addition to the ones we presently have. We know that there's going to be a lot of communication that needs to take place in order that we keep the hallways clear. And even when teachers have to go outside to the areas that are being staked out for recess, so they know what areas to use. So the communication is key. So we ordered 14 of the walkie-talkies. We looked into the printing and laminating of signs that for the hallways, for the walls, inside the bathrooms, in order that the students can be alerted at all times to what is needed to be done in school to keep not only the distancing, but make sure that they wash their hands at all times when they go to the bathroom. Guidance has adopted a new schedule schematic for grades 5 and 6 because we have in grades 5 and 6 the exact number of seven, I should have said 7 stable groups or 7 cohorts. We had to create a different schematic on that schedule. I do want to thank Mrs. Farley and Steve for helping us out. We had to get in touch with Aspen because it was totally not just quarters or trimesters. We had to go into a different period, and instead of trimesters and quarters, we adopted a 25 consecutive day period term that we call it, in order that it works best for the stable groups. And they helped us a lot with that. So I do want to commend them for helping that. And we continue to this day scheduling. We had the rollover this past Monday, but there are many things still that need to be done to the schedule. There's little details right up to the day that we open. Within that schedule, we have adopted an intervention block. That it's something that we've been looking for in the past, but now it is part of the schedule. And we are also enhancing within that schedule an advisory block that we have on a weekly basis. And we are looking into the Choose Love curriculum to be part of that advisory block. New student virtual orientation has been scheduled. And also we have notified the parents about 7th grade and 8th grade students, the level of math courses that they will be offered those students, and they will have been selected to attend those courses. And we also are going to, on the 24th of the month, looking into, probably will change now with the new dates, but looking into new students to the district. We have to test them in math to find out how we're going to place them in grade 7 and 8 classrooms. The professional development, we had several teachers in grades 5, 6, 8, and UAs. They have attended or are scheduled to attend professional development with Sarah Del Santo this summer. We have mentioned this before about the hiring process. We had 6 different committees that met to hire the following positions: ELA 7, Science 7, Music, Special Ed, Psychologist, PE 0.5 that we share with Hathaway, and we still need to hire a level B clerk, and there might be a need for 2 RBTs. The AG Innovation with Mrs. Brennan, she continues to work with our students and their families as they prep and seed the land. She also has acquired various grants for the project. So the latest is she has had many tools donated to the club, to the organization. And also now we are looking into getting together with Lucy's Heart, I believe, as to we will have a fall harvest from the farm. So things are looking very bright, and she is tirelessly working at all times to get this off the ground, and continuously working with our families, our kids. This week they just put up the deer fencing where they had the football team from the high school getting together with AG Innovation and lending a hand as to they had to put in, I believe, 35 posts on the ground to put up the deer fencing. So congrats to Mrs. Brennan, and thanks for all the work that she is doing. With our building basing teams, we met twice, and we scheduled to meet again this Thursday at 7 o'clock. Prior to this meeting, I had a subcommittee meeting for health and wellness at 5:30 this afternoon. I know that Pam met at 2 o'clock, Pam Storm, and I know that Lisa was meeting at 7 o'clock tonight also. So we'll have all the information gathered to meet again this coming Thursday. Our communication goes out weekly to our faculty and staff, and we had one communication with parents. And with all of this, we keep it strong, PMS strong.
Thank you. Thank you, Shimon.
Question. I just have an odd question. I mean, when it says classroom desks, I mean, I know we have to socially distance, but are we talking like those old-fashioned one-person desks, which I think that's what we're kind of moving away from pedagogically, right? Or are we talking like tables that can then be used after this is all done, you know, in more collaborative ways?
Yeah, so the desks that Joanne is referencing are actually on wheels and are they can really design any type of setting that they want to. Those are the desks that you ended up purchasing, correct, Sharon?
Triangular shape that you can put 3 or 4 of them together. Or you can roll them and have one single student sitting here.
So we'll have them separated.
That's great, because, I'm glad that this will be something that we can use after all of this is done. Nice.
So high school is up next.
You're up, Mr. Monroe.
Here he is.
Thank you. We have been meeting with our PHS as reopening steering committee for Prague. This is our 5th. Today we had a 2-hour meeting. That was our 5th meeting so far, to have discussions and conversations about different structures in scheduling, in different ways that we can support our kids throughout the course of the year in all 3 scenarios. The teachers have been working really hard to come in and looking at the various sizes of classes. As you know, the high school has a hodgepodge of sizes and shapes in terms of classroom space, and the teachers have come in pretty religiously to look at the spacing and how we can keep students apart. We've been also having discussions about transitions and how we're going to provide transitions under the 3 scenarios, and also looking at one of the biggest areas, having the biggest school in Newport County, is looking at our lunch protocols and how we're going to support that. Depending on the outcome or scenario of the governor's decision on Monday, it's possible that we might be having 2 cafeterias in operation at the same time throughout the 4 lunches that we have at the high school. So we've been preparing for that. We're also looking at ways that we can creatively give students more access to the bathroom, and also providing safety so that there are not large numbers of students congregating at the same time. So we're looking at systems to be able to support that as well. Much of the conversation right now in our committees are focused in on curriculum instruction and assessments as one subcommittee, and the other is the health and safety. We're also looking to ensure that we constantly support the social emotional development of students through our use of the advisory block. We use that as a way as a constant during our spring virtual learning experience, and that was a good way to see if a student was becoming more detached or maybe had some issues that could be referred to guidance and other support personnel. I think that was critical and the one stable part of the students' school experience last spring, and we're aiming to continue that in all 3 scenarios coming forward. We've also been working really diligently in looking at the student schedules, at least on a weekly basis, to try to maximize students' ability to get into classes. Right now, we have about 96% of student requests being honored. We recognize that the schedule is always has a certain amount of synergy in terms of students moving from one section or one class to another. They change their mind. They want to challenge themselves in different classes, but we're very comfortable with the fact that most students are able to get in their request, and we're looking forward to seeing the schedule work to the students' best interest. We also have ordered cafeteria tables to accommodate the potential increase in the number of lunches that we're going to be serving. We are also looking to, there is at least one classroom that we did have to upgrade because they were using tables, and those tables were too large and couldn't accommodate the students with the proper distancing. So we ordered more of the singular tables, but not the ones that are traditional, more of the ones where you can actually put them together into small group. They're a little bit more expensive, but they provide that versatility to provide more student-to-student conversations beyond COVID, and will be useful. We're also looking to work with a particular school, a charter school that was closed down, to be able to get more classroom sets of those pretty much new furniture to eliminate some of the costs onto the district. We facilitated community meetings. Dr. Kinworthy has done community meetings. We have done community meetings with our staff, and we're looking forward again this week to do another community meeting to give teachers an opportunity to voice some of their concerns and to be able to problem solve those concerns before the school year starts. We are finished with our summer school. We have some students that are still, we have about a dozen students that did not graduate last spring, and we're looking to try to support those students as much as possible to finish some of their credit recovery, as well as any other projects or things that they need to get done. And we're hoping to have a cadre of students at a school committee later this month or early September for a graduation type ceremony. We have also been very busy. We had quite a few retirements, particularly in the science department this summer, and a couple of other personnel that transferred to different parts of the district. And that left quite a bit of void in those hard to reach areas, and particularly science, which we're looking for biology, chemistry positions. There are very few people that are certified in those particular areas, but we did, in some cases, 4 or 5 interview rounds to be able to secure the best candidate for our kids. And now we're working with the Rhode Island Department of Education to try to make sure that we have reciprocity with states that they might be coming from, to ensure that they have the proper education credentials to lead our students. We've been very pleased to be able to say that our custodial staff has been working tremendously hard cleaning and supporting teachers as they come in, needing to have desks and materials be removed. And they've been very supportive. Our clerical staff have been real troopers in coming in and supporting teachers and answering questions for the public regarding much of the information. And I got to say also, our parents have been very supportive. I've received quite a few telephone calls and emails thanking us for the work that we did in the spring and for the effort that we're making to try to make whatever scenario comes forward the best for our students. So we're moving forward. We're continuing to meet with our reopening committee made up of parents, students, and staff to continue to find ways to make this transition into the next phase for Portsmouth High School a success.
Great. I do have a question. How, like the classes like band or chorus or play, some of those activities, are some of those going to be able to take place? Are they going to look differently? Has there been a discussion on that?
There has been. I think what we're looking at is potentially looking at the auditorium as a way to spread students out. If we're looking at a potential designation of alternating days in the park, depending on the schedule, if it's a partial opening where we have half the students, then 9th and 11th graders would be coming in and on one day, and the 10th and 12th graders would coming in on another, which would mean that particularly band and chorus, they might not have all the students there in real time. They might have half the students one day, half the students another, which would mean that we probably wouldn't have as larger numbers. But I believe the alternative for the band is to be able to use the auditorium to spread students out so that they are safe to do that. In chorus, the numbers are small enough or smaller than band so that they can use the same protocols as they are doing in a classroom, and to make sure that they're at least 3 feet apart with proper 6 feet without masks to be able to be spread out as much as possible. And I think we have the facility to be able to do that with our numbers right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. So last slide is one I just wanted to include because I know these are questions on a lot of people's minds. This date of September 14th, That was based on originally the August 31st start date, and then I think the latest information from the Interscholastic League was they were going to give it a couple of weeks and try to start a somewhat of a condensed fall season if possible on the 14th. Now, as of today, we learned that we won't be opening the school year until at least September 14th. So I'm not sure what the decision will be made there, but again, we'll hear more information on that, and that'll trickle down. That'll be primarily high school athletics, but also trickle down to middle school. And then just no other decision. I know we're getting questions on things with other after-school activities, even our Alphabet program. We are in ongoing discussions with Alphabet, trying to see if we could have some sort of before or after-school care or programming through that group. But again, there's still some things to figure out. What we do know for sure, though, again, with our transportation guidelines and limitations we have, is we will not be able to transport students to any after-school programs. It's just to that home address, that pickup and drop-off will be. And again, there's such strict protocols about assigned seatings and who will be on the buses. So that we do know for sure. So that was a lot of information there. So I thank everybody for who helped with the presentation, but I just want to make sure everyone has the most up-to-date information in what we know so far.
Okay, thank you. I mean, again, I have to applaud the efforts of everybody to get all those details out there, because there's so many questions on everybody's mind. So really, I think it's long, but it's a very useful time to spend. So thank you very much, everybody. Moving on now to the business section of the agenda. I would like a motion to table school committee minutes A and B, please, Fred, first.
I thought it was B and D.
No, I think you,
Oh, I'm sorry, B and D. Yes, B and D.
I'm lost here. I thought the next item was the approval of school committee minutes.
It is, but
Okay.
you have a motion.
Okay, all right, I got you. So I'm going to do it as two separate dates. So
Yes, please.
make a motion for the approval of the minutes of June 9th and the executive session minutes of June 9th.
No. Okay, Fred, I'm gonna hold on. I'm not sure if you're hurting this. Mr. Payero, can I have a motion on the minutes, please?
Can I get a motion to
Move to table?
move to table the executive session meetings from that are listed in the agenda, June 9th and also June 24th? Third, thank you.
Great, I think that's automatically approved. And so now we need a motion to approve the school committee minutes of June 9th and June 23rd.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ferber, seconded by Mr. Shears. We're going to need to do a roll call vote since we have some Zoom participation here. Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Holtman?
Aye.
Mr. Payero?
Aye.
Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Emily Copeland? Aye. Unanimous, 7-0. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
So move.
Second.
Can I have a roll call vote, please? Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Ms. Holtman?
Aye.
Mr. Payero?
Aye.
Ms. Copeland? Aye. Unanimous, 7-0. Business item A.
I move for discussion and action on part-time employee salary increase.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Mr. Giro?
Sure.
Sure. So, as you know, we have approximately 40 part-time employees, clerical, general school aides, and bus monitors. These employees are not part of the collective bargaining agreement, so their hourly wages are determined by the school committee each year. I am recommending a 3% increase this year. I know that may sound a little bit high. However, we have had past discussions of trying to move these folks closer to that $15 an hour. Can't do that obviously in 1 year. And then also, if you step back and don't just look at it as a percent increase, but kind of look at it, what does that mean in dollars? for an average employee working 20 hours a week, that would be about that'd be about $16 every pay period. So trying to keep that all in perspective, I think 3% was where I landed on a recommendation. And just as an FYI, CPIU was 1.8%.
Any questions, comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney,
Aye.
Ms. Holtman?
Aye.
Mr. Piero?
Aye.
Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Emily Copeland? Aye. Approved, unanimous, 7-0. Can I have a motion, or this is just a discussion, so motion to discuss PMS generator, please? We have to do that for discussion?
Do we even need a motion for this?
No, we don't. All right, Dr. Kenworthy.
Okay, so again, because we're having the meeting today, we just thought we would put it on to update the committee, just so you are aware. And I know Mr. Dior and Mr. Dean are on here and may have some more information to provide. But in the storm that we had last week, I don't think it wasn't long, but the area near Portsmouth Middle School did lose power for a little bit. That should have kicked on the generator. That's when we discovered an issue with the generator. I had to bring up some backup equipment. This is a generator that has had issues through the years, and Mr. Dean feels strongly that it's at the end of its useful life, so we had to authorize an emergency purchase for a new generator. If you have any other questions on that, he'd be happy to answer.
Seeing no further questions, we appreciate the update. Will it be installed in time for school start?
Jim, do we have an update on that PMS generator when we are expecting it?
I don't think he's on.
I think he dropped.
I dropped off.
I can provide some background on that. So no, we don't at this point. That's a fairly involved process. We will need to get an architect involved, electrical engineer. We'll probably want to take the opportunity to reassess what parts of the school are actually tied into the generator. So I know, for example, the cafeterias at the middle school are not. So if we lose power, those refrigerators and freezers are not running. That's a fairly big endeavor, and we will be reaching out to Department of Education, the school building authority, to request an emergency approval to get housing aid on that. Now, that's not guaranteed. We did get emergency approval several years ago when one of our boilers had stopped working and was at the end of its life, and it was very difficult to get parts for. So yeah, when that generator did not kick on, we did not have fire suppression. We did not have the servers for IT we're not going to be working. So that's very important for us to do. So I don't have an update on where we are on that, but I can let you know that we will be moving ahead quickly.
Roughly, what's the ballpark cost of a generator like this?
I'm gut checking it, Fred. I'd say anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000, depending on what it is.
Sources.
That's why we want the 35%.
Right. So I don't know where it'll fall in that range, but somewhere in there.
Yep. All right, thank you. May I have a motion for item C, please?
I move for discussion and action on graduation policy -IKF final read.
Second.
Dr. Kenworthy.
Sure. So this is the final read. You've seen this policy once already. Back in June, it came up through the policy subcommittee, and it's just on some updates that we had to make to our graduation policy. And the updates, we had kicked it back from the policy subcommittee originally to the Portsmouth High School School Improvement Team. So there has been a lot of collaboration in making the necessary adjustments here.
And this will take effect for the class of 2022, correct?
22, correct.
Okay. Seeing no further comments, discussion, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Ms. Holtman?
Aye.
Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Mr. Piero?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Emily Copeland? Aye. Didn't miss anybody, right? Unanimous, 7-0. All right, business item D, please.
I move for discussion and action on a resolution recognizing and honoring African American history in Rhode Island and urging the adoption of African American education in Rhode Island's K through 12 schools, starting in the 2021 to 2022 academic years.
Second.
Or years.
Okay. Yep, thank you. So this resolution came from RIAS. The town council has already approved it. I mean, we already do teach parts of this, but it's basically honoring and supporting. Dr. Kenworthy, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that covers it. Certainly, we reviewed it and think that there is a lot of connections that we can make with our social studies curriculum at all levels.
Great. Mr. Shears.
I was just wondering what our procedures are, and are we also in our system of education for Native Americans, Latin Americans, Asian Americans?
That's a great question, and I think that is one that the diversity and or that racial and the equity subcommittee has been looking at, because that question came up, right? That to really how does one look at the curriculum holistically and inclusively? That's a great question. Do you want to take a stab at that?
I can try, certainly. So some of the conversations that we've been having is that we'd like to work on having a homegrown curriculum to really support our students and our families. So some of the work that we'd like to do this coming year is do some research on what other districts may be doing in work that's really happening throughout the United States. And in the hope is that as we start to come together and break up into subcommittees within our working group, that we can really focus in on elementary specific curriculum. And again, it's been a lot of a conversation about not just race, but really starting to not just expose our students, but really teach our students about differences and diversity and in culture, and have a culture, like a really rich curriculum. So those are discussions that are ongoing. I look at Carlos because these have been ongoing with a lot of parents and teachers, and our hope is that we can continue to build our committee so that we have a perspective from various people.
Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Ms. Holtman?
Aye.
Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Mr. Piero?
Aye.
Emily Copeland? Aye. Unanimous, 7-0. Last item, discuss update on USDA school meals waiver. Dr. Kenworthy?
Sure, this is on for an update as well. It was a time-sensitive issue last week. We were made aware through regular communications we get through our Health and Wellness Subcommittee that if you remember back in the spring when we had to go into full distance learning, we were able to take advantage of a similar waiver process to be able to distribute free meals to, it's kind of literally no questions asked at any families that decided to take advantage. This is a waiver that will allow us to do that if we found ourselves in that scenario again at any point during the school year.
So you've sent the letter, we don't need to vote on it.
Correct, it was due by last Friday, so I did have to sign.
Great. All right, well, that concludes the public part of our meeting. We will be moving into executive session here. Before doing this, our next full school committee meeting is August 25th. That will also be a mix of in-person and virtual. We'll see what the governor's limits are at that point and whether or not we can have a public in attendance or whether it will be public zooming in. And then the next full meeting after that will be September 8th. So thank you all for joining us and taking the time tonight. Can I have a motion to go into executive session, please, Mr. Ferber?
Do we need to adjourn public session first?
No, you move to go into executive session.
Okay, I move to go into executive session.
Second.
Do we need to, I think we actually need to read the sections, right? Do you have the whole thing in front of you, or do you need
I'm
somebody
sorry. Yeah. It was too long since the last meeting. So pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, sections A1 any discussion of the job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such person or person affected shall have been notified in advance in writing and advised that they may require that the discussion be held in an open meeting where advance notice has been provided. So, subsection A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation.
Okay, I think they call that the summer learning labs.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Shears. We'll do a roll call vote here. Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Mr. Piero?
Aye.
Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Ms. Holtman? Emily Copeland? Aye. We are now adjourning the public session and going into executive, or we're going into executive session. Thank you all for coming and have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.